Good day, guys. Welcome to Forex Walker. Welcome to episode 53. Today, we're talking about the South African rand. And on the previous episodes, I was talking about the South African rand exiting the recession. Normally, the central banks, what they do is that when they exit a recession in a currency, they don't necessarily look into the GDP. What they even though here you can see that our GDP is in the positives, but those positives are like the last time we had a negative, we were down here, like a few years back, 2023. So we had a 1.6 and 0.5, 0.8, 0.6. South Africa is a very corrupt country. If you can look into the corruption index in South Africa, it tells you that it is moving lower and lower. Well, because the current government is moving towards the polls, they're moving towards voting times. That's part of the reason why they had to slow down in the corruption ethics. And actually, we're having some issues. Man, I don't believe that the corruption index is all the way down here at 4.1 points. I don't believe that. I believe we're still up here, even though we're having some, what do we call it? Some prosecutions for corrupt officials. But, okay, they're not prosecutions, they're just hearing held by the government. So I don't believe that the corruption index is down here. I believe it's up there. This thing is being manipulated, but we're actually moving towards the polls, and this government is trying to slow down. It's trying to cut down on its corruption ethics. So here you can see that the GDP is flattened, even though it is in the positives, but the currency is actually moving out of a recession. Since they started the interest rate cutting cycle, it started last year actually, the currency started responding well towards the interest rate cuts. We just had a drop here, but you can see that we're at the 3% benchmark. We went down to 2.7. We continued with the interest rate cuts. We went to 3.5, 3.3. We had a dip lower, but then I believe that if we can get another interest rate cut, it'll actually stabilize us somewhere on 3.7%, which is a good signal that we're exiting the recession. The interest rates were held in Jan 2025, and they introduced an interest rate cut in May. So I believe that somewhere somehow we need to hold interest rates, and the reason why we continue to see those interest rates is because of the GDP being flattened. But most of the time it happens because of the, you know, the both the economy not doing well and the corruption index. So here you can see that the unemployment rate is at 33.2%, but the unemployment rate does not reflect what I'm looking for. Let me show you something here in the labor market. I want to show you something uh, that will make you understand what I'm talking about. This is a youth unemployment rate. I want you to see where the youth unemployment rate is at. They're telling us that the youth unemployment rate is at 62.4%. Remember, unemployment rate does not mean people are employed. It means that uh, people are unemployed. So you see 62.4%, but it actually reflects the opposite. It's you can subtract this number from 100%, then you will know how many people in the youth are employed. Here we had a tiny decrease, but I don't believe in that tiny decrease. I believe that the unemployment rate is actually worse than this. This is almost 38% of employed youth. So let's look into the trade balance. You can see that we spend a lot of time in a trade surplus, but even though we do have a trade surplus, I mean, uh, if we drop from 19.6k million to 3.97k, you can see that we're actually moving towards the negatives. And this trade balance is actually pushing us towards a trade deficit. So the currency is not doing well. I'm trying to buy it in the coming days, but I don't think it's reflecting what is supposed to be reflecting. So the currency is totally not ready to be uh, to be bought. But I was talking about hedge inflation. Hedge inflation, the trade that we're trying to hold, hedge inflation is when a currency or an economy stops listening to macroeconomics. I call them the boom bust processes, but the boom bust processes were created by uh, were first founded by a man called George Soros. When you see the inflation flying at those high levels, picking up steadily, uh, the currency stops listening to macroeconomics. It pushes higher and higher, forming what George Soros calls a bubble. I call it the boom bust process. When the currency stops listening to macroeconomics, it keeps pumping. But when you look at macroeconomics, nothing is allowing this, and nothing is pushing this currency higher. The currency is just pushing all the way. The reason is the response of the central of the banks or the hedge funds deciding to buy the currency because of what they heard, or because of the hawkish stance created by the central bank governor. So and when you look at how you see that, you need to look into inflation, and the inflation will tell you if the currency, the macroeconomics is moving. Let's say the benchmark for these guys is at 3%, and you can see that you see that the inflation is moving higher and away from the 3% benchmark into 4%. What will happen is that the currency will pump higher and higher, because the hedge funds are going to jump in and try to buy the currency ahead of the you're going to try to buy the currency ahead of the boom bust processes. Their intentions in buying the currency is that they want to jump in ahead of the central bank, because the central bank, when they have a hockey stance, they're going to hold interest rates. And what happens is that the hedge funds and the banks are going to actually want to buy the currency. They're going to want to hedge this high increasing inflation, and thus in this currency, which is the South African rand, against the euro. Let's say the euro is not doing well, they're going or the USD is not doing well, or the USD is just entered a recession, or it's moving deeper and deeper into the recession, and the South African rand is actually the inflation is actually doing well, is actually exiting the recession. So what they do is that they want to hold the South African rand with a currency that is not doing well. Unfortunately, my broker allows me to trade the South African rand with the euro, or the South African rand with the USD, and those are the only currencies that I can hold, that my broker allows me to hold. So what will happen is that the South African rand will pump, and it pumps not because of macroeconomics. It pumps because the hedge funds are buying it. So that's why I say a hedge inflation trade is when the the currency stops listening to macroeconomics. It pumps because a lot of hedge funds and banks in the global market are buying the currency, and the currency will pump not because of macroeconomics. You can see the unemployment rate increasing worse and worse, getting worse and worse. As you can see, it is increasing. This was actually supposed to be only the unemployment, not the. It was supposed to be only the unemployment. As you can see, the unemployment is pumping higher and higher, telling you that the currency is deteriorating. But even if you see that even the GDP is not picking up, but the currency is pumping higher and higher, it happens because of the hawkish stance in the central bank and the hedge funds buying the currency. So, hedge inflation or monetary policy divergence happens when a currency stops listening to macroeconomic reports. So, you see currency pumping because the hedge funds are buying it, not because the currency is doing well. So, that's the trade that is actually happening at the moment. And I'm looking forward to taking those trades. Uh, the the South African rand, yes, is pumping, but it's about to give us a turnaround. It's about to get weaker, and when that happens, I will exit. Uh, the time will come where I will actually show you guys my trades. At the moment, I'm just showing you what I'm doing macroeconomically. And when the time comes for me to show you my trades, I will not be showing you macroeconomics. I'll just be showing you my trades and how well I'm doing. Uh, these lessons are just for learning purposes, and in the future, I will be posting my trades for you to see that I'm actually trading. Thank you guys. I will see you guys on the next episode. Goodbye.